The goal with that is man-in-the-middle attack shouldn't happen. And if they do see anything, they shouldn't know what to do with it. If today someone intercepts your two-factor authentication, they will actually see the text. And there are outfits out there that are actually intercepting those messages when you send them out. They look at it to be able to log in as a user, and then they pass the message on to the user. You never even know that you got hacked. But that's because they can actually read it and decipher the meaning of it. Everything that we do is done securely, so no one can actually do that.
Hey, just a quick question.
Sure.
You mentioned digital signatures. Do you apply your own digital signature, or do you partner with somebody to provide that digital signature?
So we use OpenSSL standards for doing that. So we use a combination of that as well as what Bitcoin provides us.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Let me just go over the process, just so you have a sense of how the product itself is used. Because we don't have that much time, we're not going to actually do live demos. We'll certainly do that as well afterwards, but we're just going to go through the process. We want it to be easy to set up. For consumers, it's as easy as taking a picture of your driver's license, scanning the back, signing it. And once you do that, you're going to have your mobile app loaded with your driver's license. One other step that happens in that, there are two steps that are important for that validation of your driver's license. One's called sealing, and the other one's called certification. I'm going to go through that real quick. Sealing is the process where we go through and we grab all the fields that's within your ID. We create hashes and digital signatures and put that on the blockchain. So that's the process that we go through. The actual PII is kept within the device itself. So within our own servers, we never keep any of that data. And what's on the blockchain, if you're not familiar with digital signatures and SSL and RSA encryption and all that, ultimately, you cannot reverse engineer what's on the blockchain to get the information back. You need the original data to verify it. So the thesis behind what we have is if you ever break into anything, you would break into an individual phone and you could potentially expose one user at a time. So you won't have data breaches like what happened with Target or Home Depot, where you go in and all of a sudden millions of users' private data will be exposed. So the private data is encrypted and kept on the device. What's on the blockchain is verification and validation procedures. There's one more step, and then we'll actually go through real examples for you guys. One more step that takes place, which is certification. So you got an ID that's on the blockchain or verifiable with the blockchain, and ultimately you could argue that if you get a copy of my driver's license, you can go ahead and scan that and put that on the blockchain and claim that you are me. So that's what a hacker would do. But we rely on multi-factor authentication in this process. So one of them is you got to have physical access to the driver's license and be able to scan that information in and have that raw data. The second part is what we ask is the user goes in and they actually log into a session. So this is just to represent the person going into their bank account, and we're using banks as the example. When you go in and you log in a manner where the bank is comfortable enough to let you do financial transactions. And it's typically username, password, that maybe their two-factor authentication as far as letting you in. But once you do that, they say, I know who you are because the Know Your Customer laws require me to know who you are and have your background information. I'm comfortable knowing who you are. In that process, a message is sent to the ShoCard application where it then provides the bank with its information, which includes the ShoCard ID that's on the blockchain. That would be a record that's sitting out, for a record that's sitting out here on the blockchain. It's public key for being able to do the validation, and the data that it's going to provide the bank to say, here's who I am. The data is matched with what's on the blockchain and verified. It's also verified with what the bank has on the user itself. When everything matches, it says what I'll do is I'll insert one more record on the blockchain. And that's this green one that it inserts right here. Again, anything that's put on the blockchain is always written there with private keys that only that entity has. So the user has its own private key, and the bank has its own private key, and the only person who could actually write those records there. In the future, the bank can refer to that user not by name, driver's license numbers, last 4 digits of social security, mother's maiden name, and other soft data, can simply refer to it by that ShoCard ID and look at that certification and say, I recall that I had seen this user, I certified it, I used my private key to write that there. So that's kind of what happens in the back end of it. Ali's going to go through a couple of examples to actually show you how this thing works in real life example.
Great. So now I'd like to walk you through some of the use cases using your ShoCard that's been signed and sealed. As Armin mentioned, we don't really have time to do a live demo, so these are going to be screenshots and representations of the different use cases and applications that we have. So here's an example of how you can use your ShoCard for credit card authorizations when you're shopping online, but it works the same for card present situations as well. You visit an e-commerce site to shop for a pair of shoes, and you know, let's see.
You got a space bar.
Okay. You visit e-commerce site to shop for a pair of shoes, you click, and you enter your credit card information as usual, and when you click buy, you get an immediate notification on your mobile device that you have a purchase to approve, and when you see that, then you end up, you click that, and then you're asked to authenticate yourself using a Touch ID, which is required to access your private key, so that you can approve or reject that transaction, and then before your purchase is approved. If you don't recognize the transaction or reject it, or you can just let it time out. So that. And also, we're actually working on an app for the Apple Watch, and so we should have that in the future as well.
So the example that Ali just went through on that one, and I have another example, frustrating example I had, which I'm sure some of you guys have also experienced, is the positive example. So you do a transaction, you know that you did it, you can authenticate it, and then you proceed. The merchant didn't have to change anything on their side in order to accommodate this. Quinn, if you're familiar with 3D access, 3D secure access, it requires merchants to actually modify their sites to support it. In this case, they don't need to do that. Let me just tell you an alternate case of that where things go wrong. So we came to Florida. I haven't been here for a number of years, so we came over the weekend. We're at a different hotel. I used my credit card at that hotel. But then we came over to this hotel, and my wife was with me. And we were a little bit tired. She wanted to go to the room. So I ran the card, and it got rejected. It was my business card that I wanted to use for this hotel, and I didn't want to use another card. Usually I just say, okay, heck with that. Money's not going to go to that card. It's going to go to a different bank. Well, I got an email notification that came to me. I also got a call that I was busy trying to check in. I didn't listen to it, so I ended up going to my voicemail. So I'm in there frustrated trying to figure this out. She goes back and sits down. Then I listened to the voicemail, so I had to spend a little time listening to it. Then I checked my email. It says, okay, the car's being held back. So, oh, that's right. I'm in Florida. Doesn't like what I did, despite the fact that I was just using it. So then I go back and I made a call. This is just a screenshot of the call that I actually had with Bank of America, trying to validate myself, and with another 8 minutes on the phone. Basically, what I'm telling them is what we call soft data. I'm giving them information about me, we're doing this stuff, so I'm paying a lot of attention to what I'm giving. I don't think they asked me a single question that someone else wouldn't be able to find out. It was my name, driver's license number, my address, so all that stuff, soft data you could easily get. Then they went through 3 different transactions, and they said, did you do this? And I said, yes. Did you do this one? I said, yes. Did you do the third one? I said, yes. I think if I was a hacker, I would say yes to all of them too. Give it a shot and see, maybe it will go through. Bottom line is, the security check, the verification check wasn't 100%. It could have been someone else actually doing that. And it took 8 minutes for a representative from the bank to be on the call trying to verify me, so that's the cost for the bank. And for me as a consumer, it was frustrating as heck. Finally went back, I was able to actually do the charge and proceeded. But this is the case in terms of how to do verification today. I was talking about expensive. It didn't cost me a dime, it cost me time, but it did cost the bank in the process as well. There's a couple more examples that Ali's going to go through, including what we have to call in.
So now I want to take you through a couple of use cases using around identity, not transactions, that will show you how the ShoCard can significantly improve security and customer experience around logins and authentication. If you take Armin's example, it took him most of that 8 minutes just to prove to the customer service rep that it's in fact Armin. The questions I asked, like you mentioned, to authenticate him were based on soft data that can be from public sources, such as name, address, date of birth, or even your social security or mother's maiden name, which is pretty scary. So using the ShoCard, the customer service rep only needs to ask for your account number. The customer then gets to authenticate herself with such strong security that there cannot be a man-in-the-middle attack. For the user, it's simple. It simply asks you to authenticate using your Touch ID to confirm your identity, and to allow the call center rep to grant access to your account and allow you to conduct the business that you actually called them to do, without any clear text information going, without any kind of phishing or hacking happening. account takeover. The final use case we want to run through to share with you is for username and password-less login. As we know, passwords are weak, not easy to remember, which is frustrating and often hard to keep secure because they're written down or kept in plain sight. Even two-factor is not ideal because it usually requires a password and it too can be hacked. So here are two examples: how to log in without a password and one just scanning a QR code. The process is simple. You put in your user ID and click the phone icon or scan the QR code with your ShoCard app, and then you get a notification on your mobile device again, which you authenticate using Touch ID and click to log in to get access to your account. And that's it.
So that was a quick run through of the product, and we just kind of told you the back end of it, a little bit of how it's built, and a few use cases in terms of how you would use that. Validating credit card transactions, call centers, as well as logging into websites. There are numerous other solutions out there, and this is some of the ones that we're thinking about just with regards to banking. And some of that, as we've talked to banks and feedback we got from them as to what they wanted us to focus on more. There are a bunch of other applications for this that goes outside of that, and that goes to, for those of you guys who were in the earlier session today regarding blockchain, goes to other applications that come out with the blockchain. To be able to expand it well beyond what Bitcoin itself provides, right? But it's a means of being able to go to a non-partial database, one that is not managed or cannot be hacked into or compromised, being able to get information off of that to do validation. And that's the only thing we use it for, is just for validation. Any questions? I think we only got like a couple minutes before you guys go through the next session. Yes?
Do you all use, when you do this verification into the process, do you all use or reach out to any other databases like maybe like LexisNexis or any other third-party database to validate that information?
For the example that we gave you, we don't do that. Oftentimes it's the banks that have actually done the verification and then they do just the certification process. There's actually a partner that we're working with that provides background information both in Europe as well as here in the US. But those are some other solutions that we're looking at with different markets we're going to where they actually do validation of driver's license, passport, credit reports, criminal history, background check. So there's a whole series of them that they do that we're actually tying into our product. But use cases of those are a little bit different. Just to give you a quick example of it, working with shared economies, such as Airbnb or Uber. Those are the cases where you want that, because they're not like banks, they don't have to have the same level of background checks, where you want to use third parties to do it. So we do the background checks with those, and we say on repeat basis, we can prove this is the same driver, or it's the same homeowner, whoever that is. But those are the cases where we use that.
Are you integrated with other phones besides the Apple or the iPhone?
We're iOS as well as Android, but those are the ones. Yes?
In your example, you had the notification come up on the phone. Does that imply that there always has to be a ShoCard app that's been downloaded by the consumer, or can this be embedded within another app?
So we have it as a standalone as well as an SDK that it could be embedded.
Great.
With banks, even though we showed you the whole interface with ShoCard being independent, they don't want to, well, one, they want to use their own brand. We like to use their brand in the process as well, but they also don't want consumers to download multiple apps, so we integrate with them.
Thank you.
Yes?
Help me understand why blockchain here is the advantage, because the use case that you showed, if I have a central database with biometrics and you are authenticated with Touch ID, I would do the same type of verification. So why you choose blockchain instead of traditional solution for it?
So part of the reason is this is a platform that we're building for identity, and one that will be used across more than, if you look ahead, consumers don't want to have 15 separate apps downloaded,
Right.
even though we just talked about integrating into other apps. You could have it integrated, but you want to be able to say, this is my identity, I don't want to be integrating to every app in order to do my authentication. In order to do that, if you go to a central place where we keep the PII data for verification, that's data that could actually get compromised, and we would be responsible in that case for maintaining that database. Putting it on the blockchain, the beauty of that is, once you write something there, There's no way of corrupting that data, and it could be used across the board by other parties as well, without having to rely on a separate proprietary relationships. That's the main reason why. I know I think
It's much deeper than that. Absolutely.
we can definitely talk about it in more detail.